My mother-in-law kicked me out of her house because she disapproved of my decision to give birth at my parents' home. She forced me out while I was still in my pajamas, not even allowing me to put on shoes. With only my phone in hand, I quickly called my mom, who was nearby. I waited for her at a local diner. When my mom and sister found out what happened, they were furious and took swift action that would soon create significant problems for my mother-in-law and my husband. My name is Emma, and I'm 29 years old. I married Jerry, who is 31, a year ago. His father owns a large company, and Jerry is being groomed to take over as the next CEO. He's currently gaining experience at one of their smaller branches. I met Jerry at work, but I wasn't aware of his family's business empire until just before our wedding. The fact that he was in line to become the CEO took me completely by surprise. His confidence and likability made everything seem to fall into place, and suddenly, I found myself as the wife of a future CEO. After our marriage, Jerry moved to the main company's office while I continued with my job. My father-in-law was supportive, telling me, "I've heard you're a young leader at your workplace. Keep up the good work." However, my mother-in-law had a different view. She questioned why a wife would prioritize her career over home responsibilities and was strongly opposed to me working. Initially, I thought living separately from Jerry's parents would prevent conflicts, but I was wrong. They expressed a desire for us to live together, and that's when our troubles began. My father-in-law suggested that it would be beneficial to have someone around to manage things, given his busy schedule, and Jerry agreed. I was concerned about leaving my job and moving, but Jerry said, "Mom and I have always lived here. Moving now just wouldn't work for me." Feeling cornered, I reluctantly agreed to the arrangement. Once we all lived under one roof, the challenges began. My mother-in-law, already critical of my job, started making my daily life difficult. She insisted that I quit my job and take on all the household chores despite my full-time employment. Any small imperfection in my cleaning, whether a speck of dust or a stray hair, would prompt her to demand that I redo it. At first, I tried to use her criticism constructively, but her scrutiny escalated to inspecting rarely cleaned spots like behind the TV or between dressers. Eventually, I decided I had to stand up for myself. "I can't clean these areas every day," I said firmly. "I work just like Jerry. I'll do a thorough clean on weekends, so there's no need to redo everything today." My mother-in-law was enraged by my response. "How dare you talk back to me like that?" she shouted. In her anger, she called Jerry and falsely accused me of yelling at her, twisting my suggestions into a confrontation and adding tears for effect. I hoped Jerry would understand and support me, thinking he might say something like, "Mom, Emma is working too. Maybe you could be a bit more understanding." Instead, I was met with disappointment. "Why did you upset Mom like that? She was only trying to help," Jerry said, siding with her. This response underscored the stark difference in expectations and support within our family. "Why are you getting upset?" Jerry reprimanded me, ultimately aligning himself with his mother. It was then that I realized the only person I might rely on in that household was my father-in-law. However, his frequent absences due to work left me to navigate the tension on my own. I soon learned that challenging my mother-in-law only led to more disputes and left me feeling deflated, as she would invariably complain to Jerry, who offered no support. To avoid further conflict, I adopted a quieter demeanor, believing it was the only way to maintain some semblance of peace. This strategy carried me through the year until I began experiencing health issues, prompting a visit to the doctor. The diagnosis wasn't just an illness. I was pregnant, feeling a mix of hope and apprehension about the family's reaction. I decided to share the news with Jerry first. "You know how I've been feeling unwell lately." "Well, I went to the doctor, and guess what? I'm pregnant," I said. "That's great. So, I'm going to be a dad, huh? I can't wait. Do we know the gender yet?" Jerry responded excitedly. "Not yet. Does it matter to you?" I asked, sensing his underlying expectations. "Of course it does. It has to be a boy," he declared. Since Jerry was an only child, I got the impression that having a son to continue the family business was important to him. "What if it's a girl?" I wondered aloud, concerned about how this might impact our family dynamics. "Don't worry. I'm sure it's a boy," he reassured me, though I remained unconvinced. We decided to wait until we could confirm the baby's gender before telling his parents. When we learned we were having a girl, I was thrilled and uninterested in perpetuating any gender bias. Jerry's reaction, however, was less enthusiastic. "A girl? Are you sure? Get it checked again, he said, disappointment clear in his voice. His reaction made me anxious about how his mother would respond. Despite his initial disappointment, we knew we couldn't keep the pregnancy a secret from the in-laws any longer. I gently nudged Jerry to share the news. Well, I'm pregnant, he told them. My father-in-law's face lit up with joy. That's wonderful, Emma. We're finally going to have our first grandchild, he exclaimed with genuine happiness. However, my mother-in-law's reaction was immediate and pointed. So, what's the gender? She inquired with a hint of hesitation. I replied, it's a girl. A girl? I hope she's as lovely as you, Emma, my father-in-law said warmly, clearly not concerned about the gender. But my mother-in-law's disappointment was unmistakable. A girl, not a boy. It has to be a boy to make sense for Jerry, she muttered under her breath. I was taken aback by her reaction. Before the tension could escalate, my father-in-law intervened. Honey, why would you say that? Whether it's a boy or a girl, they're still our grandchild. Can't you just be happy? He chided her gently. She seemed subdued after his reprimand, but I knew her mood wouldn't last. True to form, as soon as my father-in-law left for work the next day, my mother-in-law confronted me. Just because you're pregnant doesn't mean you can slack off on the housework. You're not planning to quit your job, are you? If not, keep up with your chores. Pregnancy isn't an illness, you know. Hearing these words from someone who had been through pregnancy herself was jarring. It made me seriously question whether staying here was the right choice for my child. My family's home is about a 4-hour train ride away. Since my dad passed away early, my mom and older sister have been living there together. Perhaps if I shared everything with them, they might welcome me to stay. I began to feel that giving birth at my in-laws' place might not be the safest or most supportive option. I remembered that my family's home could offer a better, more caring environment. I decided to call my mom immediately. Mom, it's Emma. What's up? She asked, surprised by the call. I'm pregnant, and I was thinking, could I come home to give birth? I asked. Congratulations. You should have told us sooner. Of course, you can come home for the delivery. But have you talked this over with your in-laws yet? Not yet, I admitted. Make sure you discuss it properly with them. If they agree, then I see no issue at all, Mom advised, emphasizing the importance of clear communication for the well-being of my baby. Encouraged by my mom's support, I decided to discuss the plan with Jerry. I'm thinking of going home for the birth, I mentioned casually. Oh, going home for the birth? I guess that's fine, Jerry responded nonchalantly. My mom's here, so things should be okay around the house. His quick agreement surprised me, but anticipating potential resistance from my mother-in-law, I decided to speak with my father-in-law as well. After some thought, I approached him. I think it might be best for everyone if I went home for the delivery. Would that be all right? He seemed initially surprised but then reassured me. If that's what you want, Emma, then it's probably the best decision. I won't oppose it. Could you perhaps speak to your wife on my behalf? He asked. I'll tell her, he promised, seeming supportive of my decision. With his backing, I thought I had secured permission to go home for the delivery without issues. However, on the morning I was scheduled to leave, I woke up to find my packed luggage missing. My heart sank as both my husband and father-in-law had already left for work, leaving me no choice but to confront my mother-in-law. Do you know where my luggage is? I asked hesitantly. Oh, that luggage? I got rid of it, she snapped. I don't need a daughter-in-law who causes so much trouble. Don't ever come back, she shouted aggressively. Stunned by her harsh dismissal, I realized that returning to my family was not just a preference but a necessity for my peace and safety. As she pushed me out the front door, I barely had time to react. I hadn't even put on my shoes, clad only in my pajamas and holding just my smartphone. I heard the front door lock behind me with a definitive click, a clear signal that my mother-in-law wanted me gone, and she meant it. The thought hit me hard. If I lingered, that door might never open for me again. With this realization, I began to walk away. The peak of summer made the barefoot journey outside nearly unbearable. Seeking some relief, I found refuge in a nearby diner, using the only possession I had, my phone, to reach out for help. I called my mom, who was incensed by the situation, and promised to arrive within the hour. Fortunately, she wasn't far away. I spent that anxious hour in the diner, nervously waiting for her. When she arrived, she didn't hesitate. She drove me straight back to our family home, where my sister was already waiting. I shared everything, the harsh actions of my mother-in-law and the apparent indifference of my husband. My mom and sister exchanged quiet words, their murmurs leaving me anxious about their discussion. The next morning, being back at my family home felt like a breath of fresh air. As I went to fetch the newspaper, I opened the door to an unexpected sight. My mother-in-law and husband were kneeling outside. "Emma, I'm so sorry. It was all my fault. Please don't sever ties with my husband's company," my mother-in-law pleaded. "Emma, I'm sorry too. Please can we continue doing business with my dad's company?" my husband added, his voice filled with regret. Confused, I had no idea what they were talking about. Suddenly, my mom and sister appeared from behind. "What on earth are you two doing? Causing a scene this early?" my mom asked sternly, her voice cutting through the morning air. "What does resuming business mean?" she probed, seeking clarity on their sudden change of heart. To avoid further disturbance, my mom invited them inside. The atmosphere was tense, with unspoken questions hanging in the air as we all stepped back into the house. Once everyone was seated, my husband began to plead his case. "Would you please consider doing business again with my dad's company?" he asked my mom and sister, who managed the company my late father had left behind. They listened intently, curiosity evident in their expressions. I turned to my mom. "What does it mean that they're doing business with my father-in-law's company?" "Yes, they work with one of their subsidiary companies," my mom explained. "It's a major player within their group, second only to the main office, and their top client is your mom's company." My husband added, looking at me, "This was news to me and apparently to you as well." I chuckled. "That's news to me too," I said, reflecting on what I remembered. Come to think of it, I recall my parents-in-law mentioning they've always been indebted to each other since they first met. The warmth of nostalgia quickly cooled when my mom interjected with firm resolve. "I can't continue doing business with a family that would send my daughter out like that, with just her phone," I declared firmly. "I'm ending our business dealings." My mother-in-law, visibly shaken by my mom's declaration, pleaded desperately, "Please, I beg you, I'll do anything. Could you reconsider stopping the dealings with my husband's company?" At that moment, my sister, with a smirk, chimed in, "You said you'd do anything, right? So you'll agree to Emma's divorce and, of course, pay alimony and child support, won't you?" Her words echoed painfully in my mind. Just the day before, my husband's response to my concerns had been dismissive. "It's what you deserve," he had said coldly. That callous remark only solidified my decision. Silently, I found myself in agreement with my mom's stance. Any remaining affection for my husband had evaporated. If my sister hadn't made such a compelling point, I would have brought up divorce myself. Thanks to her well-timed comment, the conversation's dynamics shifted decisively in our favor. Reluctantly, my mother-in-law asked, "Even if it means agreeing to a divorce, will you resume business with my husband's company?" With a knowing smirk, my mom pulled out her phone and made a call. "It seems this lady here agrees to my daughter's divorce," she said clearly into the phone. From the speaker came my father-in-law's voice. "Got it. Hey Maria, I'm divorcing you, and Jerry, you're fired." His drastic conditions for resuming business were clear. My mom continued firmly, "I cannot forgive the two of you for how you treated Emma. You both deserve to be punished." This unexpected turn of events led to my mother-in-law losing her husband and my husband losing his job, income, and family support. The fallout continued with a bitter divorce, expertly handled by a top-notch lawyer from my father-in-law's side. During the proceedings, assets were divided, and my mother-in-law ended up paying a significant sum in compensation to my husband and me. I, too, proceeded with the divorce. Living with a husband so heavily influenced by his mother was no longer an option for me. I received compensation for the emotional pain inflicted by my mother-in-law and husband, as well as child support for our unborn child. The financial strain on them was so severe that they had to dip into their savings and eventually take on debt. Under the powerful influence of my father-in-law and mom, my now ex-husband struggled to secure a new job in his previous field and ultimately had to switch careers, moving into customer service. This marked a significant, perhaps humbling, change in his professional life, highlighting the profound consequences of our family turmoil. However, my ex-husband underestimated his new role in customer service and soon faced numerous complaints, leading to a swift termination. He now lives with his mother, barely scraping by with daily wage jobs. Once accustomed to a lavish lifestyle, They now reside in a small one-bedroom apartment. Their relationship soured and marked by frequent arguments. I sometimes wonder if there's any hope or joy left in their lives. Meanwhile, I safely gave birth at home to a healthy baby girl surrounded by the support of my mom and sister. As things settle down, I'm planning to join my mom's company, looking forward to a new chapter in my professional life. I did inform my ex-husband about our daughter's birth, but he showed little interest. All I expect from him is to fulfill his child support obligations. I have no intention of letting him be a part of our daughter's life. My focus is on moving forward and living a fulfilling life with my daughter, supported by the love